Okay, I've got some vocal. I'm going to go ahead and get started. And anyone who will come in, I'm starting about 10 minutes early. So in the event that someone comes in, they can go ahead and look at the front end of the video screencast and see what's going on. I want to talk just some kind of housekeeping things right now, and then we'll move on to what we've got going on in the course. Lunches database 1, 2, and 3, those all should have been uploaded already. We did those, okay? Now I want to note something here, and I'm over in the modules section, and this, of course, is week 4. Hi, you'll notice that Rockford exam number 4 is due on the 8th, as is exam 5. And I just have it moved around in the module. However, if you go over into the syllabus area, you'll see that indeed on the 8th of March, those two exams, for exam 4 and exam 5 from Rock Off That Text, are due. So that's pretty much what's going on. Hi, good to see you again. You guys can catch up on the front end. I started at about 5:50, so I'm about a minute into this. Let me go in here and manage this, and I'll mute everybody. Glad to see you, Taylor. And want to talk about what we're going to do. Now, again, the stuff that's up, these three files, these 3 database files were due today, and we've already done them. And then, of course, you've got these Rock-Off exams that are due next week, okay? And so you see that, that on the 8th, 4, 5, and 6 are due. And so we're going to work on 4, 5, and 6 tonight, okay? Now, what I will do with some of these is just kind of hit the highlights and not go into great depth about it. And obviously, if you ever want to go any further, there's the code for these different chapters, and that's the best thing I know to keep us all going. Now, we want to go into the files section, and you'll want to have the textbook open. If you're following along, it'll be helpful to you. And we're going to come down, of course, to the Rock-Off files. Okay, and one other final thing I'm going to talk about, just what I did last week. Last week, as you recall, excuse me, we had a recording on the 22nd, okay, and then I also had, I had a beginning recording, hi, and then I had some other resources here. These are all from Penn State University, talking about the geospatial revolution, and the reason I included that is because at the heart of this is the use of databases, layers upon maps and layers upon those. So I wanted to alert you to that, because that really right now, in terms of databases, other than some of the stuff that's going on with cloud computing or artificial intelligence, is really creating a real revolution in terms of how we do business. And as I mentioned before, all the things like disaster relief, etc. I saw I believe it was last night on PBS NewsHour, they had about 50, maybe a 6-7 minute segment on open source hacking. Pardon me, on open source, I guess, applications that you can use to find out what's going on in North Korea. And it was fascinating because they had a guy there, and this, again, database technology, and that the model is so useful. He was a military analyst, and he was talking about one of the launches of a North Korean missile. And what he did was, to get the time that the thing and the location that it was fired, was he looked at the backdrop of the stars. They did it at night. And so by seeing the constellations as they were arrayed, he was able to nail the day and the time when that thing was fired. And then they had done some other mapping where they created, they found it's kind of a bunker or something where they've got one of the missiles. And so it's just fascinating to listen to how he used location analysis and high, and to open source types of tools to figure out what kind of missile they have in the place. It's just unbelievable. So this again, now for business people, in my mind, this really is, and if you're a marketing student, you really ought to be on top of this. On top of this, excuse me. Location is everything. Okay, and in retailing, it certainly is. And you could just imagine all the applications. And I think I've mentioned Esri in several other classes, which is the company that's at the forefront of that. So I wanted to include that to make sure we got the 150 hours of instruction, but more importantly, that I'll let you see some of the cutting edge stuff that's going on out there. It's just unreal. And I think I've shared it before. I took a course from Esri, which is the company that's kind of in the lead of all of this, on called Location Advantage, and we had to find a location for a retail outlet. I believe it was in Portland or Seattle, and we were given a set of criteria, and then access to a set of map layers, and I got done in 45 minutes. What it take my father 3 months to do when he worked back for the old Fleming company. He was the vice president for store development, and he had to locate where are we going to put a store. And so just I was just completely, totally amazed. I don't know if he was alive, he'd see it, he'd go crazy. Anyway, that all being said, we're going to work on chapters 4, 5, and 6 tonight, and we're gonna run into some things at times where it's more oriented to Oracle, okay? And you'll want to do that. I do have an opportunity for those of you who want to use Oracle and learn about it to do so, and that's at the back of this text, the Henry text, appendix, I think it's appendix B or A, but he walks you through the process, and you'll have to do this on your own machine. It's appendix B, excuse me, it's over on page 765. It's a quick start with Oracle. And so if you wanted to see kind of how it works, you're fine to do that. The truth is, SAP, SAS, Oracle, there are a lot of proprietary applications out there. And in fact, I think probably the most widely used would be SAP. I think, pardon me, probably, well, Oracle would be close. But all that being said, I just wanted to make sure that you understood why I included these so you could see some of the practical applications. And as we go through, it'll be the usual deal. We'll work on some stuff tonight, hour and a half, and then we'll go and I'll finish up with a supplemental recording. And if I see something out there I think that would be really useful for you to see and how we're using databases, those applications, I'll do that. Now, all that being said, let's go over into the files, and we're going to go down and look for the Patrick materials. I apologize. And as we come down, now let's see. I want to alert you also to this. In the event that we have problems like the power goes out or the internet goes down or something like that, I have unmasked a zip file that has all of the Lunches database cases. Now, use these as a fallback or an example to look at, because what I tend to do is kind of go through what I think is a good selection from these chapters. So you've got this one particularly has everything in it, and then you've got 5, 6, and 7. So if you get to the point where you want or have to, you can use one of these as a default upload. Otherwise, we'll work through and then you can upload what we're doing. Now we're going to come down here to the Patrick materials, okay? And I want to download it. And I'm going to diminish my browser down a little bit. And what I'm going to do is throw this on my desktop, okay? And then I'll get the code, okay? As you know now, what we're doing is we just take, we open up SQL Fun, okay? And this is our data warehouse. Now, to upload it, you'll want to save it on your desktop. And so I'm going to click Save As, okay, Save Database as Access. And I'm going to put it there on my desktop, and I'm going to put SQL fund, and I'm just going to mark this with today's date, which is March 1. Okay? And then I'll save it there. That way, when you need to, you can upload it. Now, if you're in the lab, you may have to go through the business with the VMware of getting it up and started, and so you can get the access. So don't get too wigged about that. If you can, you can always get caught up. And then I want to open up I've got the database open up again. We're going to see the objects, and we have all of these tables. Okay, and remember we talked about, and just to reinforce it, we have some tables that we call dimension tables, and these are tables that deal with just some variable or factor or dimension related to our company or our enterprise. Then you'll come down, you're going to see we have a few queries. You're going to see some things like words 1, words 2, bigger number. Those are what we call tables of constants, where we've got some kind of constant, like a set of numbers or colors for you could see. And the whole idea is we're going to run queries, string these together, put them together, and get a record set, i.e. a view. Okay. Now, in chapter 4, and I also want to make sure that as we go through these, we start to see the kind of the conceptual piece of this open up. When we went through Access Workshops 1 through 4, you saw a data warehouse, a database, a fact table, and then we had that sales database. And again, the whole concept of, I have this warehouse, which could be one database with several kinds of dimension sets in it, or it could be several databases tied into it. And then this notion that we run queries to harvest that, okay? So, and we talked about the design of those, i.e. the schema, all right? And we talked about the most prevalent is probably the star, but what this is, what that schema is all about is, how do I organize the information, and how do I tie it into a central what we would call a production table or a facts table, or either one. So we're always just trying to string together these dimensions to create a record. Now, over in chapter 4, and again, to really get the best of this, you need to have the text with you. They talk about the idea of saving your results in a new table or view, okay? Now, I want to talk about that just for a moment so that you kind of understand the significance of this. When we have a table, okay, that table has stuff stored in it, and the stuff that's stored is residing somewhere in the physical address, typically of the machine. Well, all machines, okay, have a physical limitation. So what we do is, based on the limitations, server blades, etc., we've developed this thing of a query, which actually is nothing more than a snapshot of what we've collected. When we save a query, what gets saved is the code, not the data. Okay. Now, in this course, we're the ultimate DBA. We can do anything we want with the database, tables, etc. And I want you to understand that that's why this is such a powerful technology and application, because when I write a query and I run it and I get a result set, okay, I'm saving the code. I don't save data. That's why we can do such enormous computational work these days with databases. I was this week, I think I can't remember where I saw, but they were talking. Oh, it was on PBS. They were talking about predictions and statistical forecasting methods. And one of the people from the National Weather Service said, "This will blow your mind," that they can now go out to about 90% or 95% accuracy with their forecast out about 3 to 4 days. And it used to be the best they could do is 1 day. I remember before any of that even existed, Okay, and you could probably figure out what was going to happen better from the Farmer's Almanac than what was going to be her grandma's arthritic thumb or something like that. And it just blew my mind, because you think of the every day the National Weather Service processes a quintillion set of data to give us those nice maps and forecasts that we take a look at. Well, all that being said, I've got my database open. Then I want to go in and I want to take a look at Chapter 4 over the Access SQL and open that up. Okay, and I'm going to get Chapter 4, and we'll start on it. All right. Now, again, this whole idea is about creating a table or a view. So we'll talk about some of that, and as we work through. Now, the very first query, and what I'm often going to do also, so I can move us pretty fast, is just talk us through. There are going to be some times when we just don't run the query because we don't really need to. We can see what we're going to get, but again, don't get too crazy about that. If you want to do the numbering, use these 4-1, 4-1, that type of it. Let's take this very first, okay? And this is a very, very, very vanilla query. We're going to select, and then we have the fields, okay? Employee ID, the first name, last name, department code, okay? And we're going to select them into a table, SECO 401 sales staff, and we're going to get that from the employees table where the department code is the salary. Now, what we're going to do is essentially create a new table, and they talk about that on page 137, okay? And they give us that code. So we can use a query to create a table or to create another view or query. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab this, okay? And we'll go in here, no big deal. We'll click create and query design, and we'll close it off, and then we'll go to the SQL, get rid of that, put this in, and let's see what we get. Now, let me stop for a minute. Before, you'll notice up here, before I run my query, if you look up in the left corner, you're going to see that I have two options. One is view and the other is run. You say, what's the difference? Think about like Word when you do a print preview versus you just print the document. This data set view, before I execute the query, is kind of like that. It lets me see it, take a peek to see what I'm going to get, so I don't have to really make the commitment in terms of saving the query, or if I'm worried I'm going to have to do some kind of troubleshooting. Now, notice I've got queries where I make a table, I can append, I can update them, etc. So we're going to run this, okay? And then we're going to do the data sheet view, and there we are. Okay, so I'm just going to call this. I'm going to save it. I'm going to call it 4-1, and that's kind of the from there on out. There at page 137, he gives you the kind of general or a statement, and then that second one is Oracle, and he'll give you some little notes. You see the little dot there, the 3. And then a modified select statement, okay? And then we've got an Oracle and Access to show us the table we created, and we just simply ask to see that table we select. That's the bottom page 137, okay? You say, well, why don't I just look over here in the icons and click it and look at it? True, okay? One of the things that the author of this text is old school, or wants you to understand. If you needed to, you can run that query to open the table. But the truth is, with this iconic view, I've got iconic, meaning I've got all of these icons and shapes and so forth. I can click and open the thing up if I want to do it. So I don't have to write the query, okay? That's one of the advantages. And what you will find as you're out at work, based upon the level of security access that you have, you'll be looking at views, and you may or may not know the tables that you're working with. You may not even be able to discern that, but you'll be able to generate some queries off of your dashboard, Okay, that's why I included this text on business intelligence, because we use the database to store and collect data. We use the queries to further refine the selection, and then we use a dashboard to provide us those bits of information that are the most important thing that we have to have. So the queries there, 137, this is really the most important one. And I'm just going to go into the design view for a sec, and you'll see we got that all out of the employees table. And we used a criterion. We used a criterion for salary. Okay, so we wanted all the salaried folks. Okay, and that's all we did there. So that's 4.1. Now, if you want to create a table and access, think of access as kind of like, oh, I don't know, kind of a car, a bike, tricycle with a bike with training wheels or something. And I'm not saying to be insulting. It's just simply an issue of, you know, all of us have moved away from using queries to generate table. Typically what we'll do, and I'm going to go ahead, I'll come home, okay, and I'm going to close this off. Yeah, and I'm going to click create, and I'm going to go table design. And that's going to look very familiar to you, as we had those, when we took 1123, where we'd have a field name, a data type, okay, and then we might have a description. And this is the easiest way to build tables. We're doing a minimal amount of coding, and it kind of depends on the generation you're from as to whether you're okay with this or not, okay. And this is to show you what's there below. Let me tell you for a moment, let me close this off, and let's take a look at the alphabet. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now, this is just a letter. This is what we call a constants table, and we have letter, which is a primary key, and we have a short text data type. That's a storage issue, and then we see the general field properties. And if we're out in the real world, we probably ought to have the description. Now, all of this implies that I've done some kind of planning in terms of what I'm doing with the data that I collect. Okay, and the bottom line is, if I don't get the right data and I don't handle it properly, I can end up spending a lot of money on servers and people, etc., and I still don't have what I need. The human element in this is important, and that is designing the table really becomes a question of what is it about the alphabet we need to know. Okay, how do we store this the most effective way, and what are going to be some applications that we'll have down the road? So we'll close that off for just a second. And again, it's the thought work that goes into this, okay, that becomes it really becomes a team environment, and that's going to take, you know, everybody at least in the business functions working to make sure that you have what you need. The other is to make certain that you don't have data silos, or if you have actionable data, it gets shared. As I have listened to the news about what happened down in Florida, especially with the issue with the FBI, I'm not surprised. The reason being, the FBI is notorious for having silos of information at different field offices that they don't share with each other. And you say, why do they do that? Well, it's simple, okay? Back when the FBI was created by J. Edgar Hoover, the original G-Man, he decided each region would have its own regional office. And these regional offices, he believed, would have some kind of specialized work they do. And to a certain extent, he was correct. If you were in the FBI office in Manhattan, okay, you probably work a lot of blue-collar crime. If you were in Chicago, and you'd be working a variety of things, but whatever is going on up there, you'd probably specialize in. So these folks they didn't talk to each other. And they've tried over years to create uniform crime system reports so that anywhere, any law enforcement agency could access those data. And we have the technology. The master's course, it's one of the cases that we study. They have the technology to do it, but people won't share. It's a cultural thing, okay? And folks in that agency just tend to not share across regions. And so it becomes a question of adjudicating. Look, and the same thing, very same thing happened with 9/11. The people in Manhattan, after they bombed the first bombing of the Trade Center, okay, they put a bomb in the basement. The FBI knew at that point in Manhattan they were dealing with terrorists, and so they began to collect information. But they didn't share it with other people, and incredibly enough, they didn't share it with people like the CIA. You say, how can they possibly do that? Well, when you go to work and you work for some place and you see that the different departments are at odds with each other, you'll find it out, okay? And so this is one of the great hassles that we've had of trying to get them healed in. What a lot of people don't know is the United States government has 7 major, but a total of 7, and then sub-intelligence agencies. And they're collecting a lot of data in a lot of different places. And so trying to get this developed, like even this one here, is a cultural issue, and I can't emphasize that enough. Okay, if you look over on page 134, they're going to show you the beginning table and then the result table, okay, of what we got. Okay, so no big deal there. Now, as we walk on over to page 140 and then 141, we're going to see, they're going to take us through a task, okay, where we're going to do a select. I'm in the middle of 142. Let's just go ahead and open this back up. Okay, and I'm going to get this table and watch what I've got. Now, notice I've layered something else on. I've used a where clause, so I identified the dimension, okay? And now I'm going to use an order by to get another dimension. And really the dimensions here are the employee's ID, first name, last name, department code, and then salary, okay? And then we're going to order it by employee ID. So we've just layered on a little bit more there, okay, in terms of information. And let's just go ahead and get that code and then paste it and cut it in. We'll click create. And again, there has to be a logic for what we're doing. And I should be able to take a look at this, okay, and I'm going to call this 4.2 and figure out what is it you're really after. Okay, what are you trying to find out? Now, if I don't want to have this duplication right here, let's go back into the design view. If I don't want if I don't want the duplication, all right, I'm going to click this, and this should be able to hide it. It's under the, see, I've got that field. Let me go back here for a sec. No, they're not. It's not going to let me do that. I'm going to suppress the salary and the department code, and let's see what happens. Okay, now here is where I could name the view, which is what I have here, in a descriptive way, so I don't have to have all the duplication there. Okay, and what they want is we're ordering it by. We'll look back here again real quick, and I'm going to order it by salary. And go down to the SQL view. Yeah, so I'm just going to come here and I'm going to save this, and I've saved it as 4.2, but if I wanted to, I could save it as employee salaries. okay, for want of a better term, so I don't have to have all the duplication. So that's 4.2. They're over there and they ask us there in the middle of page 140, they ask us to run that query and then name it 0402 sales staff view, okay? And the reason is we're creating a view, all right? Then at the bottom of page 140, we use a modified select statement, okay? But that's using Oracle. But I want you to see it because it's a little bit different. Here it says we create a view, okay? And then over on page 141, okay, they show us doing it using the Access GUI. That's the graphic user interface. So no big deal there. And then over on pages 142, 143, the authors talk about the differences between a table and a view. And this is good information for you to have so that you understand that if you've got things organized as they should and you create the views, all you're doing is saving the code. You're not changing the table. You're not changing the data in the table. Okay? And the authors talk about, should I use a table or a view? In my mind, you probably do want it. You'll have your tables, but you want to constrain your queries to just creating a view, and that's it. Because otherwise, you shouldn't be altering a table unless you got that kind of power. Yes.
You were talking about not wanting duplication. I'm not sure what you meant by
When we had the thing where it said salary, 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 you can hide that or suppress it, and then use the title of the query to indicate that, to telegraph the meaning. So you don't have to look at you don't have to look at the duplication. Yeah, does that make sense? That's all that's about. It's a housekeeping kind of thing or an aesthetic thing. Now, over on page 145, they show us a view that we would create, okay, and that was those salaries, and that's why I said you'd want to suppress those to get rid of them. And then the authors go ahead and say, I can build a view on top of a view, okay, and we pop over to 148, all right, and we're going to see this. Now, let's see, this is going to be 4.7 in my, so I'm going to come down here. And this is the first step, okay? And I'm going to create the first view from a base table, which is the employees table. Then I'm going to create another view, okay? So we're going to copy this, all right? And we'll go in here, and I'm going to click create, and we'll do query design, okay? And we're going to run it, and there's the information that we get, and what they want us to do, and this is, I'm going to name it as the sales staff view. So, and this is page 148, so I want to name it SECL 407, and it's going to be SEC, he is old school, 0407 underscore, that drives me crazy, I had doing it. Sales underscore staff underscore view 1. Make sure I did that right. SECL 407 underscore sales. I need to do an underscore between staff and sales, because what will happen is if I don't name this correctly, when I go to run the next query, I may end up destroyed. So we'll save it as that, and it should be view 1, not views. And there then, and they show us the result of that step 1, okay? So we've created a view of that table. Again, what's saved is the code, not data I dredged up from the table, okay? And that again that's why this is such powerful technology, because the ability to execute the code is much quicker. I don't have to go in and plumb through all the tables. Now, that's the step 1. And then they say over on access, this is top of 149, you can you can do the GUI method, okay? And they talk about selecting this and creating a view 2, okay? And I'm going to show you a quick shortcut. We've got this first one, all right? And I'm going to close it off. I've saved it. And then I'm going to come down here to the I said SEC 0407, and I'm going to come down here and find that jewel, and I'm going to duplicate it. And then I'm going to do the work that I want to do with it in terms of, let's see, I've got SEC 0407. Where are you? Are you down to the queries? Probably are. There it is. Yeah, staff on view. And I'm going to open this up. Okay. Now they talk about on top page 149 using a GUI. Okay, and all they've done here is they've just further exemplified. They've further refined it. So let's open this up for just a minute. And now I'm going to come over here and in the design view. All right. And I'm wondering if my mouse just died on me. Oh, I've had big fun today. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come and I'm going to, and let's go back into the, and let's go down to the design view. All right. And I've got the department code and I've got employee ID. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to see, I'm going to add employee ID. Well, I have that already. And I'm going to use the criterion. And that criterion is going to be is less than or equal to 208. Equal to, okay, 208. As you can tell, I don't like working. There, my mouse is alive again. So let's run it now and see if it works. And there it is, okay? It's less than or equal to code employee ID 208. That's all we've done is we made, you know, we did a copy and paste. And here's what I'm saying is a lot of times, okay, what you'll want to do with these queries, especially when the author talks about, well, let's start with this number 1, like the one in the middle of page 140, okay? And then we embellish it by adding where the employee ID is less than or equal to 208. Working in the GUI that is working in this environment is do a copy, a paste, and add in the other criterion, okay? And you'll be good to go instead of writing more code, because all you're doing is adding a step on there. You're adding where the employee, you're adding a clause, the where clause, and so there's no need to go back and type the whole thing in again. Just add that in. And then you could save it as your view number 2. That's all. That's the advantage of having the iconic stuff. He gets over on page 150, 151. He talks about in 152 getting all the data, putting data into columns, okay, and adding a row to the table. He's got some code there for you to do that. For example, in the middle of page 152, excuse me, he's going to insert into that table 0409-foods the following values, okay? And he's just basically, he's creating a new record, all right? Let me say that about using queries to create records. It's a lot of work, okay? Instead of that, look, you want to use this stuff to be able to make decisions, not to become a geek that writes code. You'll have those people working with and for you. You want to be the person who's doing the thought work, and not that anything against them, but look, the bottom line is, if you're going to input data to a table, you're always better to create a form to do that as opposed to trying to run queries and add records, because you can only add one record at a time. And a form, okay, lets me get all the data in a friendlier environment. That's all I could say. And you and I fill out forms all the time. We register for a website, we buy something, et cetera, et cetera. We use forms a whole lot because that's how we fill out the table, okay, the master table that's called on us, and then whatever's dredged up in terms of some type of query or work with us, okay? Now, I want to show us something over here. And look, again, I won't go through every single query in here. You've got the code. You can see the beginning tables and the end tables. What I really feel like is important is that we go through some of the highlights, but more importantly, so that you understand the practical aspects of what we're doing. Here is a query, and this 4.1, let's put that into design view, okay? And if you look at the top here on my ribbon, what you're going to see is it says it's a make table query, and we're going to create a table. I can just as easily, really more easily, go into create table, and then go into the fields, give the fields the name I want, use the type of data I want, give it a descriptor instead of going through all this. This is a lot of work, and the author wants to show you that there are, you can use a query to make them, but frankly, it's too much work. You really would want to have a form, and the bottom line is, if you look there at the middle of page 152, okay, where did those values come from? ARR, AP11, apple pie, 150, and null. It came from somebody, probably a customer, a salesperson, whatever, okay? So why handle it twice? Let them enter the data for you in a form, and then it's stored. The other is never ask for more data than what you need. Sometimes I do work with some churches here in the area, and it's the visitor's card is the one that drives me crazy. One of them, and it will remain unnamed, had 47 items that they asked a visitor. Can you imagine that? And then they were surprised when they get less than 10 answers. It's because the visitor go, what do they want? My social security number, and the church wants all that data, but that's not the time to collect it. What you want when they visit is, what's your name? What's your phone number? What's your email? Where you live? Period. If you want to be sweet, say, did our services touch your heart? Did you like the music? Was the sermon on the Mount Wonderful? Instead of all these other questions. And then what you end up with is a bunch of empty records. And people going, why don't we collect that? And in places like that, you got volunteers. Let the end user or the visitor or whoever do the work for you. It's a tried and true. And you're going to see then over in 153, the table before the changes and then the table after the changes, and we've added in the rows. Lots of work when we could have gotten that done just using a form. Now, in the middle of 155, page 155 talks about adding many rows. This is what I'm talking about, okay? If I want, and I want to add more than one row, I've got to do an insert statement. I've got to do another insert statement. I'm at the bottom of page 154. Do you think that I increase my odds for erroneous inputs? Yep. Do you think it's tedious to sit and do inserts? Yep. Is it a waste of the time? Yep. You just use a form, okay? Now, and I'm glad the author shows you, he's old school, and he shows you how to do that. But, writing insert statements is kind of a waste of time. But you understand what we're doing there. You can look at the logic of it, and you've had enough now. You can go, okay, I'm inserting into the table, some table called name, a select statement, okay? And then, or I'm going to insert into the table name and then the list of columns, a select statement. And they give us the Oracle over on page 155, the Oracle method, the Oracle and the access method, okay? And putting data in certain columns. And that's why you have a form and you don't mess with it in terms of working at this level, at the code level or the design level. Okay, and then they have an update query. Okay, and there's just the basic syntax for it. It's the middle of page 157, and they walk you through it. And here over in 411, we're going to update. Let's just do it. It's a tedious thing, but we'll do it. You see, my belief is if this thing becomes too much work for you to do, then who's the dummy, you or the machine? And you have to be careful, because you can get hooked into this and find yourself going, I'm spending a lot of time creating queries under query design when I need to be making decisions, or I need to be asking questions, or trying to take that information, the data, and turn it into something, into information. Now here what we're going to do is we're going to update the 0411 foods table. We're going to set the price as price plus 0.10, and then then the price increase will equal the price increase. So we're basically creating a kind of a column alias where the supplier ID is JBR and FRB. And the authors give us those 4 little notes to explain to us what's going on. You see and you'll see them over the top, page 159. Let's run the query and see what happens. We're about to update 4 rows, and we are, aren't we? And let's take a data sheet view, okay, and that's what we added in. And that's 411. Now they're going to show you the before and after over there. All right. Now, the update query that they show you there in 158 is a little bit different critter, because there are going to be those times when a table needs to be updated. Let me tell you, I'm not going to name the place, but it's a small Christian school in the heartland of America that does not know how to get a young lady's name changed from her maiden name to her married name once she's married. So I get to play guess 'em, and every semester for me it's about a half a dozen who have gotten married, but their last name's not changed in the system. It wasn't updated. So I'm wondering, is Jill Jones, the formerly Jill Smith? Who am I dealing with? Okay. And then I got to go down and check ID, and thank goodness ID's been checked. Okay. But it used to be you'd have different numbers and levels of ID. You'd have 4 digits, 5 digits, 8 digits, 9. We're up to 11 at one point, and we got it uniform. Okay. But it can drive you crazy. So an update can be useful, but really the update ought to be the purview. It ought to be a special request type of situation. And in this case, they're just adding the price on. That's all they're doing. They show you that beginning table and then the new table at the bottom of 158, bottom of page 158. Okay. Then over in 160, they show you that you're going to delete everything where you have this following suppliers. And that's at the top of 160, and that's the foods table. And they show you the beginning. The one thing the author does here is he shows you the beginning table and the results set, or the table after the changes, which is a good thing for us. And so if you want to run it, fine, no big deal. Now the authors, okay, pull a fast one on us by showing us modifying data in the table with GUI, and they show you Oracle and that the look of Oracle, okay? And then you also know you could do the same thing in the GUI in Access. Let me tell you, if you've written enough code, and I've done enough of my time, and then one day I see it can be done iconically, I had the same feelings I have when long ago, okay, I had the joys of writing by hand the internal rate of return. And it would be iteration after iteration after iteration. Now you just plug it in Excel and you get the answer. And what made me so angry was the next course we did the same problems, but we were using Excel, we were using spreadsheets. I thought, why didn't we do that in the first place? Who knows? Maybe they felt if we got tortured sufficiently, we would confess. And I never made any confessions. They show you that GUI. Look over there also, over on page 166. Now, 167, okay, the top of 168. They show you another update, and this is where we're setting the phone number for employee ID number 2. Okay. Could we do that in a form? Yeah. We wouldn't have to run all that code, but hey, now the second one, okay, as it mentions, he gives us an error because we're violating a constraint issue, and they talk about constraints over on page 169, okay, and what those are all about. And the constraints, it's easier to go into the table, to go into the design view of a table and do it there, okay? One of the things that makes these so challenging is that we have a mixture of what we call, you have 3 kinds of I guess, dimension tables, if you want to call it that. A straight up dimension table, then what we would call a slowly changing dimension table, okay, and then a table of constants. And here's a table of constants. I'll open it up and let's see it. Okay. Okay. And so if we've got the business name, start date, and they gave us one of those. And that's going to be a slowly changing constant, because that, unless that, if the name changes on business, fine. Okay. The one thing missing from here is an ID number, which means there's a little bit of problem. Then we'll come down over here to the numbers 0 to 9. I'll open that up, and there they are. Isn't that nice? So if you want to plug those digits in and do some mathematical computations, you can. That's all it is. All right. That's chapter 4. Okay. Yes.
What is the purpose of having like the alphabet or numbers 0 through 9? I mean, like what's the benefit of having them in a separate table?
Well, the alphabet would be the alphabet table. For example, that dimension would be if we want to run some queries where we're searching for a first name, a last name, or some part of a string in the name. Okay, or if we wanted to designate tables, if we wanted to run a query and designate that we're going to have upper and lower case letters. And what you do is you take, for example, the alphabet, and then you'd use a function, and we'll see some of those, to make it all caps or sentence case or all lowercase. And so those are just there to be able to do it. You can open up the alphabet and you can see it. Okay, so I can use those letters if I want to look at everything, asterisk in front of A, an asterisk behind A, so I'm going to get everybody who has A, that letter in the middle. You'll see that as we get down the road. Okay, these are kind of,
able to do that without a
it would be a lot tougher on the machine. And the reason we use these, like the numbers and the letters and all that, is because it aids in indexing. We haven't talked about that, but indexing, here's the concept of indexing. When you run a query, the machine doesn't process it like you and I wrote it or think it. The machine strategizes to go get it. And so, for example, on last names, you and I do a query and we include first name, last name. Okay, and there's 25,000 records. The machine is what it's going to do the engine software, the jet engine under here, what they call in the vernacular, is going to strategize by going to those letters that are most prevalent, okay, or the letters that it's trained to be most prevalent, okay. You say, give me, what do you mean? Well, think about when you do a Google search and it starts filling in stuff for you. What's happened is you and 55 billion other people have trained Google to give you the results you need. Aren't they smart? Smart people. Then they sell their ads and make their money. But you and I are basically creating their database. And they just hone it, and then you'll have, you know, this, and you can get more and more specific as it gives you, or it'll ask you, what you really meant was that. That's this whole principle. Okay? It's an indexing issue. Indexing lets the machine work far more efficiently by targeting the most likely results the fastest. Okay, these little bitty tables and data and data are minuscule. When you start talking, you know, your Bank of America, and you've got, I don't know, 50 million transactions a day happening, or 20 million transactions a day. The indexing is crucial because you have to make sure that everybody at every terminal, everybody who's online, et cetera, there's no delay, although there is, but it's so small it's imperceptible. Okay, it's almost, well, it's so fast you can't tell it. It's not a lot different than the fact that right now we're traveling 17,000 miles an hour. We don't feel it, but we are. We're circling the sun at 17. I think it's 17,000 miles, or is it 20? I think it's 17,000. Same principle there. Okay, and we'll see this as we get on further down, where we use some of these tables as we do some of that, particularly with text tables. Now, chapter 5, and the reason I kind of blew through 4 is pretty simple. Chapter 5 is about the data dictionary, and in Oracle, they have to do all types of queries, okay, to create their database, to create a dictionary, okay, and it might be worth it. It would be worth for you to browse it, just simply so you could see it and kind of put it into action. And or if you work with Appendix B or A, I can't remember which one, the Oracle, you'll want to see it. But there you're in Oracle, like at the bottom of page 176, okay? It's we have updates, and we're using the commit, okay? We're using the commit command, all right? And then they talk about modifying data through review. That's page 179. And what's important for you here is to see page 181. You know, I've talked about the notion of the view, okay? You see the table, okay? And then you see the view. The view is pulled from the underlying table, okay? And so it's much more efficient to save the view or show you the view than it is to try and go in and recreate the view. That's especially if you have tremendous amount of numbers or records that you're dealing with. On page 182, they walk you through the conceptual diagram of a beginning table, a beginning view, changing the data, ending the view, and ending the table. A cycle, okay? And you and I won't be doing that, okay? A DBA will be doing that, or our customers or stakeholders as they register and change their registration will be doing that. You can imagine what a password table looks like when people are coming in and every year they got to change their password, they have to do it every so many months, whatever. Okay. And again, they walk you through the Oracle code over there in chapter 5.5. Now, when we talk about working with Access, okay, we do that by just going into the design view. Okay, and here I've got a dummy column. Okay, and then I can run column after column with it, but I have that first dummy column, so I have an empty space I can throw something into here. And then, you know, if I have other stuff, it will all follow suit. And I can come down into the field properties and I can build some constraints. For example, is it required? If it's an ID, for example, I want to require it. Okay. And do I want to have it indexed? Yes or no? So again, this is kind of a, you know, it's just out in the real world. If you have a table and you don't have a description under there, and someone's not added a description, that's a problem, because you don't know what you're dealing with, or you may think you do, but you may be completely different. That's where you really hone down, what is this collecting? What is this field all about? Okay, and who collected it and when? And those, it's just a place to put notes. And they walk you all the way through there in page 5. And then over page 192, you'll see the SQL command page. They're in Oracle. Doesn't look too much different. Okay, but it's not as user-friendly as is Access. Okay, and then the data dictionary, page 196. You can see that. And if I want to see the names of all the views in Access, it's pretty simple. Now, that being said, the views that I can look at, or the tables I can access to create a view, i.e. run a query, are going to be, the parameter for that's going to be whatever security and whatever management level I'm at. It's just as simple as that. Page 203, they show you the GUI method, okay, in the employees table. So let's click on it for just a minute. It's the employees table, and I'm going to go into the view on it. And notice that I'm starting my data dictionary. It's not finished here because I didn't put in the descriptions, but I know that the employee ID is a primary key. Okay, I know it's in the data type it's in. And then I can come down here and I can see the field size, the precision. That's how many places we go back. Is there a default value? No. Is it required? Notice that, yes. No duplicates. That's another constraint. Okay, and is it general text alignment? Yeah, but these two, required and indexed, say, one, I got to have this field or the record won't save, and two, it's indexed. So what's pulled up is the approach towards pulling the data up. The machine's approach is going to be as efficient as it can possibly be in terms of using the index. Okay, and the index is, you know, in a data warehouse, it's going to be sometimes it's going to be the index. We'll go in and take a look at, we're going to grab things by date. It might grab them by company ID. The software that underlies what we're looking at here is designed to be as efficient as possible, so it gets as much stuff for you as possible. And that's at machine level, or machine and application interface. You'll hear people use the term the jet engine for it, and that's really what's down there. Okay, now they walk us through the issue of how do I find out the primary key. And so there on page 204 in chapter 5, they show you the Oracle SQL to find out, you know, what's the primary key. He said, why can't I just open up the file, click on it, and see? Yep. There you go. That one doesn't have one. This one does, I'm pretty sure. I'll go back down here and take a look. Yep, it's got two primary keys, in fact. Okay. And this is a production table of some time, or a fact. Pardon me. No, this is a it's a table of constants. Excuse me, but it's got two primary keys. So we match things up. Yes?
So is there the Oracle constraint name basically our field name?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
So did they put, because like it says on the primary keys, it says PK, so did they put that in there when they were making it, or does Oracle do that?
No, on Oracle, you write a query to do that. However, on current versions of Oracle, DBA is probably going to go in and have an iconic view like we do. See, what we're looking at right now is what a DBA sees. Okay, we're seeing the skeleton of this thing when I go down to the SQL view. Okay, we go to the design view. Now, what you and I would see is going to be what's more readily when you remember when we're in design view and we see the tables we pulled up and we're going to drag and drop columns in. That's the same thing as when you go into Amazon and you see the products and you select them and throw them in your basket, and you're basically running a query. Okay? The code underlying it is billions and billions of levels of code, literally. Amazon Web Service is so good, even governments come and use their service, which is why you'll find every now and then somebody will scream at Amazon about this or that, and then just kind of quiets down because Amazon will say, well, if we're such bad people, no need to use our service. You can develop your own web service. And most governments, in the United States government understands they can't replicate that. Amazon's had a decade plus to hone that, okay? And then they hone that, they had that database now with predictive power, and it's just it's unreal what they can. Well, it's Amazon. What can I say? And how many of you watched the Olympic ceremonies? Anybody? Okay. Did you see the use of the drones? Was that unbelievable or what? That's a database. They had all those drones that look like a panda. Now I kept thinking, when are they going to make it look like an ICBM, just so the people from the north feel comfortable? They didn't do that. But yeah, and my wife said, how are they doing that? I said, they got drones. And all those drones are tied into a database, and they're all doing their thing. Okay? They're little robots. All right. So over on page 203, they show you the Access GUI and how we work at it and how we can add some constraints. It's much easier to work with in there. And most of the time, database administrator is going to do that as opposed to working with code. So that's chapter 5. And you say, okay, what are we going to uplift for 5? Okay. Well, let's go back over here into the files. Now, what I'm going to have you do tonight is this database you're working on, I'm going to have you upload it for chapter 4, okay? And then there's really nothing in 5, so also upload this in 5, okay? Because there's really not anything for you to do. So you use the same database for 4 and for 5, okay? And then you can upload it. Now, we're going to move over to 6. And chapter 6, and this is talking about creating your tables. Okay? And here we go. Page 312. In fact, I'm going to close this off for a second. I'm going to say yes. And where is my friendly little, there it is. There's Cardinal Buddy in full. He says only 80 days till base policy season or whatever. Who knows? All right. I'm going to I'm going to go ahead and call this SQL fun. Where was this I had? Maybe it was this one. But I'm going to call it SQL, whatever you want to call it, but designate it as chapters 4, 5, and 6, and then upload that same query, that same database to each one. Everybody with me? Out there in TV land too. So you're just going to upload this same thing 3 times to do chapters 4, 5, and 6. And 5 really didn't have anything for us to do. 6 is going to be a little bit different critter, okay? And I'm going to open this up. And 6.1 is over on page 312. So what we'll need to do is go into the Patrick materials Okay, and we want to open up chapter 6. Yeah.
So you would like us to upload
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be 4, 5, and 6. Yeah. And then when I go and I checked, I'll just see the queries. 4-1, there'll be some 6-1 queries or 6, whatever we name them, and I'll know we're good. Yeah. Yeah. And the reason being that, it's a data warehouse, so let's just use it as such and just pop it up there as we run the queries, and we know what we're doing with 4. We didn't do anything with 5. Okay. But we're going to do a little bit of work with 6, and we're going to see how tedious it can get, and this is the start of it. Here we're going to create a table, okay, and so I'm going to copy this. All right, this is the middle of page 212. All right, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to go into the database, and I'm going to click create, query design. You say, where do I see the real hard-nosed business applications of this? Well, where you see it, okay, is going to be over in the text on business intelligence. Business intelligence really boils down to, I want to do 3 things. 1, I want to make sure my operations are operating as efficiently as possible. 2, I want to make sure that I have as much contact or appropriate contact with my various stakeholders, including my customer. And 3, I want to build customer intimacy to the greatest extent possible. And you say, what do you mean? Well, I'll tell you what I mean. Here's a good example. Our dog, she lives a life of luxury better than I do. And she has a little bed in each part of the house that she settles in as she falls. She's old and blind now. She's a rescue dog, and she's a dog, so she likes to socialize. I know I'm not a canine. I'm not much for socialization, so I wouldn't fit in the canine world. But now every time I get online, what do you think I see? I see banner ads for doggy beds. Okay? And it's not going to end until we buy something, or maybe I die, or the Lord returns, who knows. But here we've got this create table, okay? And this is 6-1, and we're going to get an empty result set, okay? And I'm going to go up to I've got the SQL view, and I'm going to run it. And we've got that. And when we go take a look at the table, we're going to see that it's empty. Now, so what's the point? Let's look here for a moment, and I'm going to take the code and pop it up. Six. And let's look at this for just a minute and what it's saying, okay? It says, let's create a table called SEC 601_foods so far. Now, parentheses, okay? Menu item, and it's going to be, the field size will be a byte, okay? Then supplier ID, the field size will be variable characters, 3. Product code, variable characters, 2 spaces, a description, variable characters, 20. Variable meaning, letters, symbols, numbers, blank spaces, underscores. Okay, it's going to assume that these are kind of human strings. And then the price, which will be in the format of money. Okay, and then a price increase that will be in the form of money. And then if we want to see the table, it's pretty simple. We can do this. And then it'll tell us, of course, there's no data in it because we didn't add data. We just created the shell. You say, now why would I do this? Well, I might do this if I have an import, like I have an Excel import that I want to throw in here. Okay, let's do the second query. And this, we're going to select everything from that table. And so we'll go to create and query design. And we should get an empty set. Oh, what did I do here? The table name is okay, foods. Let's look at something for just a second. Did we create the table? Let's query 1. Create the table. Let's see if we can find it. I'm going to run it. Okay, it already exists. Let's go in here and find 0601 and why that query is not being sweet. It's not playing nice today. Look at 0601. There it is, foods. There's the empty result set. Now, why that code didn't work, and just pull it up. Well, the truth is we just clicked on the icon. I mean, you know, C underscore foreign foods. I don't know. It's a mystery to me. But this query here, it's and so we got 0601 foods, and let's call this right here. I don't know. Let's save it as 6B. Okay. And then this other query, we will call it, we're going to save it as 6A. Pardon me, 6A. Okay. Now, they'll walk you through data types, and then over in page 214 and 215, they walk you through Oracle and Access data types. And they even cover that over in page 216. Now, luckily for you and me, we have people over there who are studying computer science, okay, who take a course in learning how to work with these different types of data and size and what you can do with them and all of that bizwax. It's a course on data structures, or it may be enveloped as they revise the program. I don't remember, but you're basically talking about the structure of these data, and there's a reason that you have them, okay? And again, the table right there, the whole business. And then the authors give us some information there about variable length strings, page 217. String, we're just putting some stuff together there, that's all. And then over on page 219, you can see, okay, how much fun this can become. And you go, that's a lot of work, and it is. And it's more work than you need to do, okay? And that's something that needs to be turned into an iconic object, i.e. a form, okay, that we can enter. When all else fails, use a form, because otherwise, look at all the mistakes you can make.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So about like on 219 and 220 and whatnot, these very long things of text. If you were to actually do this, are you typing all of that, or are some of
Yes,
those
you
like,
are.
Okay, so what exactly?
If you're working in Oracle, you're typing that. If you're working in Access, you're working in the Access version of that. But each of those, there are 1, 2, 3 statements there, and each statement is divided by the semicolon. And you got to get it right, or it won't work.
So the things like where they say like you do not want this to occur. This is a bad.
Right, exactly.
Talking to the computer.
Well, they're talking about error messages that you'll get. Okay, and again, if you structure a table like you should, and we talked about this some in 1123, and you'll hear me say this over again. If you're going to collect the data, make sure you get it, which means, and I'm old school, every field is required. If you're going to collect the data, do it with an eye to what's it going to cost me to store this stuff. Now, you know, for most organizations, you know, it's not a big deal. But if you're a big company and you have 20 million transactions a year, it starts to get into real money. And you know, and that's why Google keeps adding, well, they just think they're going to add 300 or 400 jobs over here. They have a server farm over here because it's just, you know, people keep collecting all this information. And it's really a premium for us with these dimensional information. or what I would call structured data, because of all the unstructured data that's out there. Data from sensors, data from locations, tweets, Facebook likes, Facebook comments, Facebook tabs, all of that so-called unsupervised data is now competing with the supervised data. And the supervised data, or the structured data, that which we can see and understand, is critically important. That's how I make sense of that other stuff. So I want to avoid as much code writing as I possibly can and do it more on an iconic level. Okay, now and you can just see here are car types, and I'm gonna open up the car types for a minute. Okay, now I know I've got a Chevy, a Ford, a Toyota, and a Volkswagen. All right, I'm gonna go over here and click create, and I'm gonna go to query design, and I'm gonna stay at the iconic level. Now all I've got to do is drag and drop. I might have to put a criterion here. Okay, I might have to create a create an operation up here of some type, but I'm not doing the kind of heavy lifting I'm doing on 219. Did that answer? Those are good questions. Again, it's expensive. People who are doing code should be building applications for you, and that's it. They really shouldn't be inputting data. They're awfully expensive data. Key operators or data entry operators. They're very expensive. And we use forms so we don't have to we let employees, we let customers, stakeholders, etc., fill in a form, and so we have the data. Otherwise, we expend a lot of time on stuff we really shouldn't. Now you're going to see over on page 222, 223, okay, data and numeric data types, and date and time are the easiest way to ulcer, I know. Dates and access, put them within hashtags. You're going to see other examples where the book will say do this, do that. Put them in hashtags, and that's kind of the default thing where the machine will go, oh, it's a date. Okay, the human being wants this thing called a month. I just know it's 4078, and you've seen that when we've worked in Excel, and we've put in a date and then convert it to a number. It's the same principle here, and we just use this. We put it in there using the a hashtag symbol. Now, down on the bottom of page 222, okay, they show us an Oracle and Access, the way to put new data in a table. All right. Now I can tell you, marked in my book is it doesn't work, and I, hacked a way to get it to work. And then I said to myself, why did I do that when I could input it in a form? Okay. So I create the form instead of writing the code. Now, if I can gather myself if I can get my emotions under control here for a moment, I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is the bottom of page 223. It doesn't work. I'm going to do select. Okay. L underscore foods. And then I'm going to put an asterisk, dot asterisk, okay, and into SEC 0607. Pardon me. You see how much fun I'm having here? SEC. I never learned to type. I went to my guidance counselor and I said, I want to learn how to type. And he said, man, don't worry, you'll have a little gal to type for you. Haven't found her yet. So when I type, my wife just shakes her head and says, it's sad. And it really is. Food. I think that's foods. Foods. From, and then we're going to do that from L underscore, pardon me, underscore foods. So let me check my hacking. So let me select everything from foods into, this is food, foods from L foods, semicolon. Let's see what happened. I probably messed up. Okay, well, why not? You're about to, hey, look at me. I made the table. You say, why didn't you just click on create table and do it? I rest my case. Okay. But the author wants you to see this and to understand that. What I can't emphasize enough, and that's why we did the 4-access workshops, is getting the right data in the right format. We're going to call this, we're over here in chapter 6, and I'm going to call that one, what was it? Yeah, let's call it, yeah, I'm going to call it 6-8. Why not? Okay. Now, on page 320, on page 225, they show you all kinds of fun doing the coding. You'll see the Oracle, we create the table, and the syntax on it is we create the, that's a command that invokes, and it's to execute the following things, and then we give the employees, and we identify it as a table, and then we create the table, employees, okay? Well, the dash up there is a comment. The second line has got the code, and then we have parentheses, and notice that at the end we're going to have to double up to make sure we've got them all within a parentheses. And here we're going to do the employee ID, first name, last name, department code, hire date, credit limit, phone number, manager ID, okay? And then we've ended that, and then we go back in and do an alter statement in the middle of 225, okay? And then we do all these inserts. Yes?
So the semicolon ends a statement.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember when we were doing the select, so
Mm-hmm.
you can only have one of those.
Only one.
So how is there a bunch of these?
Well, because the author wants to show you the kind of work you've got to do if you're going to input all that data.
So each one of these would
Each one of those is a query. Yeah.
A different query and make a brand new query for each
Yeah.
statement.
And that's the best argument I can tell you for using a form. I've been to war enough times with all of this. Believe me, okay. I know where I speak, and so and all those insert statements you're going to mess them up. It's just going to be a lot of work. And notice if you come over to page 226 at the top, you weren't finished. You had even more. And you can even analyze the table and start. Okay?
What's commit?
That means execute. Then you're going to analyze the table, and then you'll get the sequence, and you'll start with 211, and you're going to increase. So it's saying we're going to start with employee ID 211 and increment by 1. Yeah. So, trust me, when you get right, when you go to work and someone goes, well, maybe we ought to just add another database system. And the people who work in IT go, why? You understand why they just went, oh no, because they've suffered through all this. Better you're working at the iconic level with this stuff. Because you could just basically run the query off the table and you look for equal to or greater than 211. And that's what you're after. But here we go through all this rigmarole. Now, to its credit, Oracle is now fairly iconic, so it's easy to use. when you and I look at like what I've got open up here, it's hard for us to understand what an incredibly what an incredible achievement it is with all that we see. This all had to be coded and developed. The icons had to be designed. And so when we open it up and it works every time, I don't have no idea how many hundreds of millions of code underlie this. But I'm pretty sure, if I'm not wrong, that Microsoft has, I think, about 1,000 or maybe 2,000 employees that work on Access all the time. That's all they do. And another couple of thousand or so that work on Excel, and then they got some that work on Word. That's all they do. They write code to find glitches, security issues, and all that stuff. But this is absolutely a marvel. The first computer program I ever wrote used a thing called a Hollerith card, where I had this punch card, and I typed in the stuff, and I put them together, and if they weren't in the right order, it wouldn't work. If they were in the right order, about an hour later, I'd get an output sheet, old green and white bars, if I hadn't made any mistakes. And I look at this today and I go, where were you when I needed you? And same thing with word processors. Same thing with data, with spreadsheets. Right now, what we're playing with here for school, for class, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it would be world-class stuff. People would be going, oh, where'd you get that? So the people at Microsoft are kind of smart. Now they talk about putting in a primary key. It's at page 226 and top of 227. And they show you the code to write. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up. I'm going to go down to colors. I'll put it in design view. Okay. And if it's not a primary key, I'm going to make it one. Or I may add another field if that wasn't a primary key, and I'd say color ID. And then this would be color name. Okay. Obviously, I think they're from Italy because they got a green, red, and white. Isn't that what Italy's flag is? Green, red, and white. France is red, white, and blue. We're red, white, and blue. Aren't they Italy? Red, white. I think. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's Libya's, or who knows what's out there. But we got the three colors here: green, red, and white, and they're each a prime. And with the primary key is the color. Okay. More Oracle. Getting rid of constraints. Again, you can go into a table. Let me go into one that's a more full-throated or full blast table, ongoing table, and it's got objects in it, dimensions in it that we can do some playing around with. This is a good one. Here we got there. We'll go down to the design view. Okay. And we've got the employee ID, their first name, their last name, department code, hire date, credit limit, phone number, and manager ID. Okay. Then we have the data type, and then we have the primary key. Now, if I wanted to, all right, I could put a constraint in here, and on the primary key, I have one. Yes, it's required. Yes, there are no duplicates. Okay. And the text alignment's general, and it's in a decimal field size. Could I make first name or last name a primary key as well? Yeah, or I could make department code. The employee ID seems to be the one that works best for us, and we've added that constraint. That's all it's about.
Why would you have employee ID as a decimal?
Yeah, storage. It's the smallest storage level. Okay. When you start talking about, sizable organization, well, okay, let's take a look at OBU. And we've had employee IDs. Probably the first wave of employee IDs was somebody's social security number, because the folks at Thurman, that's the old days, said, well, let's just make them use a social security, because they had to have an ID. And then someone probably said, why don't we just run random numbers, and that's their ID. Okay. and probably your ID and my ID and everybody else's, if is probably broken down into some kind of chunks unbeknownst to us to indicate who we are, what era we came in, and that kind of thing. So it just kind of evolves through the process. Now, if you really want to have fun, is you could create an employee ID and then a password, and make that also. And the password would be make it into a parameter query, and say, okay, what's your username? Put that in. What's your password? Put that in, and you've got two things. And your ID your username will probably be equated with your ID, and then the password, same story, but you'll have that double layer there, and you're basically filling out a form and populating the table. Those are good questions. Over on page 223, they show you about altering this is 613, and deleting a column from a table. Okay, and there at the top of page 223, they show us the code. Let's go look at 613. We'll find it. Okay, open that jewel up. I'll go down to 613. And here we're going to alter the table, and we're going to drop that column. Now, this is supposed to work for Oracle and Access each. So we see the beginning table there, okay? And then we drop the column price increases or price increase. So let's take a stab at that and see what happens. Now, this is fairly reasonable because I'm doing something that I probably need to be doing. So I'm going to click Create. Query Design, I apologize. We're going to get to that point in about another 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm going to be ready to call a night, as I know you are. And we'll go to SQL, and then we'll add on some more here. And notice when I ran the query, I didn't get an error definition, but I got a feedback, and that feedback is, it says data definition. It says, okay, you got rid of a column, and it's gone. So that's why that went hot up there. It will give you that cue.
So drop is delete?
Yeah. And we drop the column. We use the drop column, serves kind of a function. And then when we went after the price increase. So that's going to be 613. Now I try to balance this off. I try to balance off this stuff. Okay. I'm going to save it. And I'm going to name it 613 with, as you start to get into the business intelligence text and look at it, so you can start to see. So we're kind of working at what's behind the dashboards and all that stuff that I use. This is underneath the hood. This is as far as under the hood as we need to go. I don't know who I was telling it to, but when I was, your age, if I had a weekend to kill, I'd go, let's pull the motor on my car. And so I pulled the motor. Today, when I open up, I'm frightened to open up the hood on my car because it looks like Medusa. And I'm afraid I'm going to turn to stone because it's got all these cables and wires. I'm going, what is all of this? What's all the electronics and sensors and all that stuff? The days of, I pulled my engine out, I maybe cleaned out the valves a little bit. I might even pull the brakes. That's long gone. That's why you can count on $100 when you go to get your car repaired. Figure it'll be $100 not as a default because you've got a smart technician there who does that work. All righty. And they show us the beginning table and the ending table. Over on 235, they walk you through 614, number 1, and then 614, number 2, each of those. And you'll see these. And you're at the point now, okay, you understand what's going on. Now, this little thing right here, the graduate students who probably had to write all this out, said, I think I'll just put a little bad character in there just to be mean to everybody who buys the book. So you'll want to take that. But we don't even have to execute this query. We're going to select the last name, the first name, and the phone number. Now, phone number as EXT, we're using a column alias as EXT. And then we have as notes. That's got an extension as notes. Let's run that because that looks strange to me. But maybe we had something. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to copy that. And I'll go over here to create, query design, and let's see what happens. Maybe it looks like it's got some funky stuff in it. And it's going to ask me to enter parameter name. Okay, fair enough. And that's because it's a parameter query. And let's go down and take a look here in the design view, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay. I've got see the expression 1, expression 2, and then the extension, and then we've got notes. Those expressions, okay, are basically, they're like a parameter query. They're asking you to identify those so you can access the table. Then they have the update, where the last name of the person is Woods. And look through here. What else might be all that wild? Tables with duplicate rows. Sometimes, and I'll let you take a look at the text there, the author explains this, why we'll end up with some duplicate rows, i.e. duplicate records. And one of the ways we avoid that is we use the select distinct. So I'm gonna go back over here, and this is gonna be 616, okay? And I don't have to execute what this means. Is I'm going to select distinct everything into that 0616 table from 0615. What I'm saying here is I don't want any duplicates. I only want the distinct records. And they show you that at the bottom page 239. The first thing is, if you've done the input correctly, if you've used forms, as I've preached on and on, I've said more about forms to more people than Billy Graham preached to people around the world. That's not true. Not true at all. But I just want to get rid of the duplicate rows. And then we can see the table. They have us do the code to do that. Now, let me see where, okay. The rest of chapter 16, they give us 3 different ways on there on 617. That's where I'm at there on page 240. And they show us the Oracle, and then they show us the access, and there are 3 different queries that we run there to get that done. The first one, we create the table, and then the second one, we alter it. We add a column row ID counter, and then the third part of that is we take that ID, the object bought in the price, and we put that into 0617 with line numbers from 0617C. Okay, now I want to show you something up here, and we'll get into this. We'll start to see this. on page 241, if you look there, you're going to see that it says into SEC 0617C and from SEC 0165A. What we're doing there is we're starting to play around with table aliases. So just like we can use column aliases, we can use table aliases. And when we start doing some bigger operations, we'll see how that enables us, that annotation enables us to do the queries much easier. And the ending table with the line number symbols, top of page 242. Let me say this also. I'm a great believer of forms, and number two, I'm a great believer in using imports. So if you've got data out there in Excel, for example, you can import it in here and create a table, okay, and save yourself a ton of work. And a lot of people will do that. Or just like if we want to do some computational work, we'll take, and we saw that when we worked at the data warehouse, we'll take that object, a table, or we'll run a query and dump it back out into Excel so we can play around with it and do some more analytics with it. That's pretty much it. So we'll save that, and I'm going to cancel that. I'm just, well, I'll just, what I want to save it. Let's, I don't know, 617, why not? Okay. I need just a spanning these, then we'll close it all off, and we will be done. Anybody have a question I can help you with? Yes.
So with regards to what we're saving when we go to do these things and to turn something in. So some of these, like on the ones that we turned in for today, there was some where it was like, I remember one where it's like it had the correct thing, but then it had like some incorrect ones, and then it had like a correct code, and then it was like, this is how humans interpret it. And so
Right.
What exactly are we supposed to like put into a query and save for submitting it to you?
On that, as long as you've got the text and you can see it, I'm good. Okay, so there's no need for you to run that query, get the error message, and then turn around and fix it. No. Just whatever we've worked on tonight, add those up for 4, 5, and 6. Because there just wasn't that much meat in those chapters, particularly the one in chapter 5 for the data dictionary. But those one they say, okay, this is an error, and then here's the correct way to do it. You know, if you run the error, it won't save. So if you do the correct, it won't save. So that help?
Yeah, and then for like, say on 617, where we run like 3 queries. So on ones where we have multiple queries, do you want us to save each of those as like? Yeah,
you could save them as whatever you want to call them. 617A, B, C. I'll click on it and see what it is. Okay. Okay. Anybody else have a question? Any questions? Okay. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much. And pop over here real quick to the syllabus section and make sure that we're on track in terms of knowing what we got done. And let's see. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, we should have done those already. And then 4, 5, and 6, you upload these tonight, and they're done for March 8th. And then we'll start to look at, I'll probably do 7 and 8, maybe 9 to add on so we get our magical 150 minutes. Okay?
How come we have 2 of the exam?
There are some where I have to do some accommodations. I've gotten a letter from Cross Campus, and they say there needs to be an accommodation, so I have to provide that. That's what it is. No, it's not, as some people have alleged, someone who paid me off to get more trials on the exam or whatever. Okay, so you've got that to do, and we're done. And thank you for all of you who are out here. Let me see who was there. Shane, glad you're there. Suzanne, thank you much. And all of you here, you as well. And I'll do a second one so we get the magical 150. I'll probably do it over the weekend. Okay? All right, folks. So share in the recording.